What's up, Fever Nation? I'm Alex Golden.
And I'm Casey Johnson.
That's right, and this is the Fever Focus Podcast, and we are here to recap quickly the Fever's overtime loss to the Washington Mystics, 104-102. And Casey, this was a thriller that came down to the Fever having a chance to win this one in overtime. Kelsey Mitchell had her foot on the line, though, when she shot that three, and so it would have just been a 2, and we would have gone to double overtime if she made it, but this was just an incredibly weird game, and I don't know where you want to start, but this is a heartbreaker.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those situations where you just, you start replaying, hey, what about this little shot that didn't go in here? What about this? There were a couple of smoked layups, that could have been the game. But really, I unfortunately, I think it starts in basically the middle of the first quarter, right? You score, like what was it, like nearly 26 points in 6 minutes, and then you don't score your other 26 until 20 minutes later. You just cannot get yourself into slumps like that, and it's one of those unfortunate scenarios wherein this very well could have been a blowout win that ended up being a heartbreaker of a loss in a thriller, but it didn't really need to be that way. It really just could have been if they had just kept their foot on the gas, then I think we would have been talking about a different game. But as far as the last minute of regulation into overtime, man, what a eerily reminiscent of some other things I've seen in that building.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, it was just a lot of big shots, and like when Caitlin Clark hit the game-tying 3 with seconds to go, and you're just like, and then Citron hits the half-court shot right after the buzzer had,
Oh my
sounded at
God.
fourth. I was like, no way did she just make this and win the game. Like, what a heartbreaker that'd be for the Fever. But it was like Caitlin was having a really tough time shooting the basketball at one point, and then she started early on, and the whole team was on fire from 3. I was like, whoa, they're going to blow them out of the water so they play like this. But then you mentioned it was that stretch in the fourth or the second quarter when they only scored 9 points in the second quarter, and it's like, that is just not acceptable if you're trying to win a basketball game. And they overcome that huge deficit they got themselves into, and the Fever had like their first second half lead after a 17-2 run, and then just so many opportunities. I think the big play I think they're in overtime was when Kelsey Mitchell had previously gotten blocked by Austin. Austin was unbelievable protecting the rim, and you could tell Kelsey just kind of short-armed it a little bit. She misses the layup to give the Fever a 1-point lead, and it leads to a 3 by the Mystics to give them a 4-point lead. I think it was like 102-98. And Pat Boylan was like, yeah, that's a big swing right there. And it's like, it's a 5-point swing. Yep. And right there, that's pretty much what I felt like was the game. The Fever had a chance there at the end, thanks to an amazing catch and shoot from Lexi Hall, and that was a tough catch and shoot 3 that she drilled. But, after you just see Caitlin Clark hit the game-tying 3, I love Kelsey Mitchell. I think she's been awesome, but this was the game where I felt like Caitlin should have had her ball in the hands on that last play. And you might push back on me and say, well, I trust Kelsey in that situation too. Not saying I don't, but she hadn't. She just missed 2 free throws. She had missed a couple other easy shots. And Caitlin really, she probably was a little tired, I'll be honest with you. But Caitlin is Caitlin Clark, and you kind of want the ball in her hands when the game's on the line, and I think that should have been something the Fever tried to do to get her the ball.
I don't disagree. I also think, however, in a situation where you have 4 seconds to glory, and Caitlin Clark, one of her bigger strengths is not necessarily like blow-bys in the open court. She gets stonewalled pretty easily sometimes. And the one thing about Kelsey is she has speed. She can get around people. And so in that situation, I really do trust the ball in either of their hands, even with what had taken place in the last approximately minute. But it's, you know, Kelsey was able to get farther down court. Do
Mm,
I want Caitlin taking a logo three because that's how far she was able to get in 3.5 seconds, or Kelsey taking a better look? To me, that's kind of six of one, half dozen of the other at that point in the game. And
yeah.
it really just matters if you think that they are going to be able to stop Caitlin Clark in the backcourt whenever she is making her break toward the basket. You have seconds to make that decision. And the thought is Kelsey can get around them and get a shot. We trust the ball in her hands. Go ahead and throw it to her. So I don't disagree with you, but I also don't belabor what they did because all of those things, all of those decisions have to be made so quickly with no timeouts. And ultimately, you could do worse than throwing the ball to an MVP candidate in that scenario. So it is
No.
what it is in that respect.
No, and I think it's a fair point. I don't disagree with you saying that I mean, like I said, I trust Kelsey Mitchell 10 out of 10 times. I was just saying in this moment, in this game, because I felt like early on, and I just want to go back to this really quick. I forgot to bring this point up. I felt like early on in this game, you saw the tired legs from the road trip starting to catch
Hmm.
up with the fever because they got off, they were hitting their shots, but had it not been for that outside shooting they got so hot from them, I mean, this game would have been a blowout because Washington was dominating them down low in the paint, and it was tough. It was tough, but I think that the outside shooting was great, and with Aliyah Boston going down and not returning, I think that we owe Monique Billings and Myisha Hines-Allen a lot of praise here for what they did in this game.
Yes.
They were pivotal in that comeback, and the three that Caitlin Clark hit to tie the game, that was all designed by an out of bounds play Stephanie White drew up where Myisha Hines-Allen set a beautiful screen to create so much space for Caitlin. And you saw in that last play where Kelsey was trying to get the shot, Myisha Hines-Allen was trying to set a screen for her, and they didn't make contact. Now, here's my question. I don't know if they would have been able to do it in enough time, but that's where I would have loved to have seen Kelsey push the ball up. Hines-Allen set an off-ball screen for Caitlin, get Caitlin moving, catch it from Kelsey, and maybe it is a little bit inside the half-court line, but I feel like that could have been maybe a better look, even though Kelsey's shot, I mean, it was just a tough one. I mean, when you're going that fast, having to pull up on a dime, and then try to shoot a three for the game winner, but your foot's on the line. So I just wonder if maybe there was something there where they could have gotten Caitlin free from a Myisha Hines-Allen screen, and I'm just thinking about that right now. So I'm in the moment. So I don't know what you think about that, but
Well, I mean, I definitely think that that probably would have been a better look. And I also think, and this is not me belaboring your point or, but also I have to give respect to the fact that they didn't have time to draw up that play. They're running on instincts. They didn't have time. If anything, you could say maybe if Stephanie White had saved a timeout for that occasion and they had had an opportunity to breathe. I think that that's also a salient point as well. But it. I think that this is truly one of those games. Yes, they played a putrid brand of basketball for a good portion of this game. Truly, they did. But you're going to have that. Even the best team is going to come out and lay stinkers. It's how you sort of respond. And when you respond by putting together, as Pat Boylan said, an instant classic, where once again, and by the way, this is without one of the best bigs in the league on the court because she went down earlier in the game. You have a situation wherein you once again have an opportunity to make a shot to tie the game at the buzzer for your second time of two games at home. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't go in. And all three shots between Clark's missed three, Kelsey's missed three, both of those in the first in the home opener, and then Kelsey's missed two here. All three of them ended up being looks that I trust those shooters to take. So I'm not, you don't want to be 1 and 2, but also you kind of can't fuss too much at the results that you were able to get in the face of adversity here in almost pulling out a win against, by the way, the team that was voted the most promising young core in the league. Like the Washington Mystics, if you still have this fallacy in your head that they're going to continue being a laughing stock of the league, if you are an NBA fan coming in who's just used to laughing at Washington in general, right? The at certain points that has been the case in the W, but these ladies have such a crazy future together. And I think we will look back on potentially this game, even in a couple of years, and say, that's when I knew that the Mystics were going to become a pretty significant problem in the league. So all credit to them for disrupting what the Fever were trying to do, as much as we have to sort of poo-poo the Fever for what they were not able to do as well.
Right. I mean, we're always going to see this through a Fever's lens, right? Because it's what we are doing here, talking about the Fever. But, Irfin was an unbelievable 25 points. I mean, she hit so many big shots,
Insane.
11 to 17. Austin was incredible. Honestly, I'm stunned that she was only given 3 blocks because I felt like she had like 40 in this game, but it
Yeah.
was just her ability to protect the rim. And honestly, I think that was the biggest difference in the game was the Fever's inability to get into the paint, because if you look at the points in the paint differential, it's 58 to 28 in favor of Washington. The Fever had to score they scored 102 points, and almost all of that was at the free throw line or the 3-point line. They did have some mid-range
Yeah.
jumpers, things like that, but a lot of it was some 3-point shooting. And that's great if you're a good 3-point shooting team like the Fever are, but you cannot live by the 3, because when you live by the 3, you also die by the 3. And so
Mhm.
I felt like this was a fun game, obviously, for sure. Like you said, Pat Boylan, instant classic, but more areas to improve and get better. And, I put this out on Twitter in the first half. Like the Fever had like they were a plus 11 with Caitlin Clark on the floor. And then when Raven Johnson came in for like 4 minutes, the lead just completely vanished. And Raven was a -8 in that moment. The Fever were a -10 without Caitlin on the floor in that short stint. So I kind of wonder, Raven only plays 4 minutes in this game, how much more we're going to see Raven kind of just get lower minute total as she's still trying to learn the speed of the WNBA and everything that it takes, because she came into the game late. And I'm not trying to create this narrative here, Casey, but what I am trying to get at is, I was a big Raven Johnson fan in preseason. I mean, if anybody listened to this
Mhm.
podcast, say no, like I was glowing about her, but she clearly hasn't gotten the trust, I guess you could say, of Stephanie White just yet for these big moments.
She is a good player. She's going to be a good player. She's also a rookie. She's also a rookie who is somewhat exhausted coming directly off of an NCAA season. Not only that, we have to keep in mind that there were several ghosts on the floor accompanying Raven Johnson, because there were 2 players on the court in Dugalich and Betts. Last time Raven saw them, they stole her lunch money in the championship game. Um, and she's probably trying that much harder because the last time that she saw them was an absolute disaster for her. And, these are the kind of things where you have to attribute youth to it. You can't worry too much about what will and will not happen with a player who's a couple of games into their stint. I definitely think she's going to have to earn her way onto the court. Behind particularly Ty Harris, who continues to just be absolutely rock solid. But there is going to be a point, and I've heard from many players that it eventually does go like this, where you just have a light bulb moment. And at some point, things are going to click with Raven, and all of that raw potential is going to turn into something beautiful. I tend to believe it will happen this year, but it's definitely something she's going to need to earn her way into.
All right. Well, I just want to end the podcast quickly with this. It doesn't matter in terms of the wins and the losses, but I think it's good to shout out the players for their successes. And that is Caitlin Clark, 5th most in assist in franchise history, and then Aliyah Boston becoming the 6th most points in franchise history. And look how young they are. look how little they
Hmm.
played here and how quickly they've already added to their resume to kind of climb up the Fever leaderboard. So it's going to be their records to break for a long time. So I'm really excited
Yeah.
about that. But I know we got to get going here, wrap things up. So any final words before we sign off tonight, Casey?
I think that this game goes to show that the W is going to be just fine at the end of the day. I think that that's, and even the things that you're saying with like, oh, Aliyah is now at this spot, Caitlyn is now at this spot, and look how young they are. Like, the beautiful thing about society, sports, everything in general is that we are supposed to advance forward, right? Many people consider like Stevie Ray Vaughan the greatest guitarist of all time, or Eddie Van Halen. There are
John Mayer.
12-year-olds. Yeah, John Mayer, another person who is in that discussion. But there are 12-year-olds on TikTok right now who could play any of those three off of the stage because things are supposed to advance forward. They worship at the altar that the legends made for them. And as we move out of the era of your Elena Deladons, your Diana Taurasi's, and all of that, as they sort of fade into the distance, there is a new class of player coming into the league, spearheaded by Aaliyah and Caitlyn and Sonia and Paige and Azzy and all of these players, Olivia, who are just going to take this league and the quality of play into a different stratosphere that we've never truly seen before. And it is all because of those who came before. But man, we are headed towards some really, really fun basketball.
Yeah, we definitely are. And I'm excited to see where the Fever go from here because I think they play on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, so they're back Sunday against the Seattle Storm. That's going to be on Peacock at 6 p.m. They've got a lot of games coming up, and then Wednesday and Friday as well this week. So a lot of Fever basketball coming your way. We'll try to cover as much as we can for you here on the Fever Focus podcast. But we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Saturday. It's supposed to be rainy here in Indiana, so try to stay dry. And then, of course, on Sunday, if you can't get down to the field house, you can watch it on Peacock. There's going to be at least 3 more home games here for the Fever this week. So try to get out and support this team. They need to get their first home victory soon because you can't lose a lot of your home games, especially like this. So Fever Nation, appreciate you all so much for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.